Hi. I'm just a guy who likes thinking about video games, and more actually, as opposed to playing them because of profit-maximizing corporate leeches who optimize and focus test away all creativity in the effort of making a more profitable product as opposed to meaningful additions to the medium. All of that is to say, we're going to be playing Tomb Raider 2013 today because A, I never actually got around to beating these games, and B, I want to exercise my critical muscles a little, and these new Tomb Raider games are very highly reviewed, both now and when they came out. And I always saw them from the outside looking in as just pretty AAA slop, so it's time to test that belief. Let's get started. Despite the game being over a decade old, it still proudly carries the tropes of our modern hellscape by forcing you to agree to allow Square Enix to collect and do whatever they want with your data, in a game that doesn't even have its servers up anymore. It's at this point I find out that A, this edition comes with all the DLC, and B, that you have to click away each one individually, and C, that most of it's for the multiplayer that you can't even fucking play anymore. Keen-eyed viewers may have noticed that my game is in Spanish, and that's actually not very weird because I do have it set as an acceptable OS language, but what is weird is that the game resets the voice language to Italian every time I close the game, which is even weirder because despite saying that it's set to Italian, if I actually play the game, the voices are really in Spanish. So, I don't know, some inscrutable, strange bug going on there. I open up the benchmark to see how well this 11-year-old technical showpiece runs on my modern hardware, and yeah, it runs fine. Laura's repetitive gasping notwithstanding. After some heavy breathing, we choose our difficulty. I'm going to be playing hard because if I play normal on any AAA game, I get bored to tears. Laura narrates the opening and gives us our first theme. That greatness is not defined by who we are, but what we do. This is the first of the game's many themes that it brings up, but then does not adequately explore. It gives us this mirror shot showing us what Laura looks like at the beginning of her journey. Remember this, so it will be important later. This one's pretty interesting. Laura goes on about how in the darkest parts of our lives, we need to dig deep and find something that keeps us going, which superficially supports the idea of survival and willpower, but ironically, the visual shows her almost dying and only surviving because of somebody saving her. This seems to be, at least in a charitable interpretation, Laura from after the events of the game, talking about what she had actually lacked in the beginning of this adventure, which being the grit and will to survive. We'll talk more about this idea later. Laura flounders around a bit, watches up on the beach, spots her surviving crewmates, and calls out for help, for Jonas specifically. Her cries go unanswered, and she gets sucker punched, cut to a POV shot of her getting dragged off to some creepy cave. I really like this part. It's very horror and feels especially isolating considering how close she was to safety before she got abducted. She cries out for Jonah again. It is at this point that I will give the game perhaps a little more credit than it deserves. The cocoon represents a sort of transformation for Laura into a survivor. It's the first instance we see where she actually goes out of her way to help herself and proves that she has the will to survive. It's a little early for such a transformation, and indeed that's a problem we'll get into more as we go. After falling on an inexplicable piece of rebar sticking straight up in this cave, we get a torch, and we learn that white cloth go burn, and red barrel go boom. We get jump scared by some Randy grabbing our leg, we kick him, and conveniently the cave collapses exactly such that we can escape him. Between everything that's happening so far, I'm starting to get the impression that Laura is equally as lucky as she is determined to live. After getting up to our neck in stagnant water, we do a genuinely cool physics puzzle involving these wooden boxes that are floating down the stream, and we get our first run while things collapse and/or explode section. If you can't already tell, I'm not terribly fond of these sections because they're incredibly samey, and pointing out the sheer absurdity of these situations is the only fun I tend to have with them. Oh no, hold forward, oh no, jump. oh no, you better do it fast, because you don't have time to mess around, you're gonna die. Mr. Jumpscare makes his second appearance in exactly the same way as he did last time, except this time, oh, we die. Sorry, I failed the QuickTime event. Let's try that again. I think scenes like this are emblematic of some of the problems I have with the game, because this kind of shit happens all the time. Just random little problems with just, oh no, thing fell, or oh no, you're sliding now. Like, it's comical how much of a series of unfortunate events this game ends up being, and it's not, it's I think it's supposed to bring home some kind of idea that, like, oh my god, this is such a terrible situation, Laura's just trying to survive, you know, all the odds are against her, everything's going wrong, but it feels comical. It's like actually absurd. Like you would do the same thing for laughs. We escape our absurdist death cave and gaze out to what was probably a stunning vista in 2013, and oh yeah, late title card. They don't call it Game of the Year edition for nothing. We balance across the tree and do another silly sequence where oh no, we're climbing on something that isn't stable, and in case potentially falling to your death wasn't enough intensity, the plane wing almost crushes her because why not? Let's squeeze every drop of blood from this danger stone. We find a camcorder, a box of matches, and a radio, and we call for help again. No one answers, and whoopsie, we lose our grip and slide for a bit. This kind of random conflict injection is everywhere in this game. The amount of times you are forced into a sliding or running while things collapse or blow up section is frankly wild. We find an old campsite, use our one match to light the fire because we can't quite have that upgrade yet, and settle down to watch the footage on the camcorder. The footage shows us that this whole expedition is to find Yamata, which Laura is convinced lies in the Dragon's Triangle, which is like the East Asian older brother of the Bermuda Triangle. This mustached asshole with 2 PhDs isn't very convinced, but literally everyone else takes Laura's side almost immediately, and so they change course to the Danger Triangle, which obviously leads to the events at the beginning of the game. We find a bow, eat shit, kill our first deer. In a moment that the game thinks is important, it's in a way her first kill, if you don't count Mr. Ankle Grabber from earlier. So after waiting much too long to put this deer out of its misery, we kill a couple more animals before realizing just how pointless it is. Yeah, so this is a game ostensibly about survival, but the only reward for hunting animals is a tiny amount of XP. Yikes. We spend our ill-gotten gains on the game's fairly limited skill trees and get a call on the radio from our replacement dad. She tells him everything that's happened, and she talks about how it's all her fault and she wants her daddy to come get her because she can't do it on her own. He insists that actually they both have quite a bit of relevant experience together, and he's confident that she can make her way to the camp by herself. A bunker door that was previously closed is now wide open, and the strange music is coming from within. Laura mutters about how absolutely bonkers it is that she's going down the creepy music hole and finds an axe next to a record player with a pointless door right there just so the game journalist can figure out how the axe works. We find our friend Sam, and she's with a creepy guy named Matthias that claims to be a teacher. Laura is clearly getting the ick, but sits down with them anyway and listens to Sam do her little nerd rant on Himiko, the Sun Queen.
Can you tell me more?
After being bored to literal sleep, Laura wakes up to find neither the creep nor Sam. Laura freaks out and immediately steps on a fucking bear trap, and what do you know? There's wolves afoot. You slow motion shooting gallery a couple wolves that jump out of the brush, and help finally arrives. Most of the gang shows up and Laura explains what just happened. They agree they need to look for their missing people and split up to find them. Mr. Double PhD mustache asshole insists that he go with Laura, which isn't sketch at all.
I'll go with her. No, let me.
Right. The sketchy asshole goes on ahead and calls out to Laura to come over here. We fight some wolves and go into a nearby tomb because it looks interesting. We are prominently shown that this tomb was downloaded, and after a long loading hallway, we do some light puzzling and reach a path that we can't open yet. That feels bad. So we go back through the long loading hallway, fight the respawning wolves again, meet up with Mr. Douche, and get an axe upgrade. It's at this point that I wonder if, this must be the gear that I needed to access that part of the nearby tomb. Surely I just got excited and went to the cave slightly early. So I make the mistake of going back over there again. I brave the loading screen hallway, walk to the other side of the cave, and as you expect, nope, I am recording this after beating the game. I haven't gone back since. I don't know what's behind that door. I finally decide to stop dicking around and start mashing E to crank. We pass a point of no return that neither of them seem to comment on and do a short walk and talk. We get ambushed, Mr. 3 Smart 5U tries to negotiate with terrorists, Laura protests, tries to attack, but then gets jumped beforehand. Laura gets tied up, the genius tells Laura to just go with it and do whatever they say, the guy who kidnaps us eventually gets really rapey, and the other prisoners try escaping, and our rapist-to-be tells us to stay put while he goes to round up the rest. We obviously immediately get up and skulk around trying to escape. He eventually finds us, gets even more rapey, as if there were doubt last time, and we immediately bite his ear off and shoot him in the dick before blowing his brains out. He continues to gargle and stuff afterwards somehow, and Laura contemplates how she just took a human life in the most morally defensible situation ever conceived.
Oh, God!
With all of our ammo located in the crotch and cranium of the touchy one, we move on and get grazed by a flaming arrow. Laura takes cover, and luckily there just so happens to be a magazine for exactly her kind of gun lying on the ground next to her. She pops out and kills 2 more people and doesn't seem to mind at all. We come upon a game journalist store, and after prying it open, we are immediately locked in somehow, and the angry men set the building on fire with Laura still trapped inside. She immediately finds some interactable wood and kicks her way out. I guess that solves that. Laura continues her escape and shoots some more bad guys along the way. While climbing this ladder, she gets a call from her not dad, and she catches him up on how she's now a certified girl boss, and killing is actually pretty easy for her.
Some of them. I had no choice.
That can't have been easy.
It's scary just how easy it was.
So we kill some more guys, and the game teaches us the basics of CQC, and eventually we find Daddy Roth fucking gunslinging some wolves down. After the shooting stops, Roth gives us probably the best line in the game.
Thank God you're alive.
God's got nothing to do with it.
What a Chad. Laura wants to patch him up, and he explains that all the medicine, among other things, is in a pack that the wolves stole, so we head out to the wolves' den to go get it back. I honestly expected there to be, like, wolves, like plural wolves, in the literal wolf den, but nope, there's just the one jump scare wolf, and that's it. With the wolf unalived and the pack in hand, we head back to save Roth. Sometime later, he wakes up and congratulates us on getting the stuff back and explains that we need to go up to the radio tower to transmit an SOS signal. Laura is pretty reluctant to do so, and Roth assures her that she definitely can because, after all,
you're a Croft.
I don't think I'm that kind of Croft.
Sure you are.
it is at this moment that the emotional core of the game is revealed. She doesn't think she's deserving of the name. Laura is plagued by self-doubt despite her overwhelmingly good instincts and survival skills. This is, spoiler alert, Laura's only avenue for growth in the whole game. She's already a super smart badass. She probably already was. If she wasn't, when the ship crashed, she definitely became one in like less than a day. The game insists that it's actually about Laura's growth as a survivor, but the actual development that she has throughout the game is in her own faith in her abilities. She's pretty, she's strong, intelligent, capable, knowledge. Her only weakness is a lack of confidence, and it's the only thing that changes. We upgrade our legally distinct M19 11th and head out for the radio tower. Thanks to Daddy Roth's new gift, we can now climb craggy surfaces, and we raid our first tomb. It's a well-known joke that all the games in this series are marketed as the one where she really becomes the Tomb Raider. They actually pull that 3 times. It's pretty funny. Unfortunately, this time around, all you get is scrap and XP, so it's hardly worth doing them in this game. It's around about this point that I figure out that jumping over and over again is actually faster when you're climbing the craggy surfaces, so that's pretty funny, I guess. Now's about as good a time as any to talk about the combat. The combat in Tomb Raider 2013 is not very hard, for the vast majority of it at least. Later in the game, it gets kind of annoying because they just kind of mow you down pretty fast when they get machine guns, but for most of the game, all the enemies you're fighting are just using bows, and for some reason, the AI for these characters is just brain dead. So all you have to do is use your pistol and just click on heads the whole time. It's not challenging or interesting. That combined with the fact that every single body you loot is going to have ammo for all of your guns, regardless of whether or not they actually had a gun or not. The maximum amount of ammo you can carry with the pistol, for example, is 50, I believe, at base, and then you get one upgrade, it goes to 75. I think you get another upgrade, it goes up to 100. So you're never really gonna run out of bullets if you're looting bodies, and you only need one to kill someone, so it's kind of silly. We roll up to a campsite and Lara decides to watch the rest of the footage on the camcorder. The highlights are, this guy's a pedo loser, Roth is fucking the mechanic lady, and this asshole can't do anything right to save his life. Roth also tells Lara to trust her instincts, again. Lara gives herself a little pep talk and presses onwards. Some murders later, let's face it, many murders later, we find ourselves in a World War II bunker, stuck in this room, filling with gas, and we get a pretty cool moment with some good comedic timing.
I'm gonna watch you die now. Don't fight it. It's over for you. Hey, what are you...
Afterwards, we get a World War II era machine gun and just no rushing these guys down. Honestly though, the lack of accuracy with this thing makes it strictly worse than the pistol in my eyes, so I hardly ended up using it. The pistol is just too good. You can literally pull it out and just click on their head, and then that's the end of that. Like, I don't understand why you would ever want to use anything else. The shotgun that you get later on ends up having a role to fill when you get into the brute enemies, but there's like 2 of them in the game, so I don't know, man. Turns out that the controls for the radio tower are borked, so the pedo man on the radio explains that she needs to go to the maintenance panel, which, unfortunately, on these pesky old towers, is at the very top. Through a random passageway inexplicably full of hot pipes bursting with steam, we make it outside where Lara comments that the snow isn't normal. Another random jump scare man and several felony murders later, we are introduced to the shield enemy. We shoot him twice in the head with the pistol. Yeah. The tower climb, probably the most memorable moment in the game for me. I actually played the game back on console when it came out, and I never finished it, but I did remember this part when I was playing through it to completion, this time on PC. And I feel like they do a good job of making it feel emotionally resonant. Lara really didn't want to do this in the first place, and she ends up doing it, and it's even worse than she thought it would be. And she succeeds anyway, and ended up, you know, successfully calling for rescue and doing all the things, and it's honestly just really an interesting scenario. Like, it would be really scary to be this high up, and I think the camera movement, the shakiness, and the thing just generally falling apart, it plays into like the fear of heights that I think primarily we kind of all have. So yeah, I think this scene is really cool, and I think it's one of the better ones in the game, and obviously it has tie-ins with Lara's, you know, confidence building and proving to herself that she's capable and all that. Like, yeah, it's good. It's a good scene.
We'll be heading your way soon.
Lara Croft, you are my hero! Hey, you know, Reyes actually just cracked a smile.
Right. Need a signal. A fire. Fuel, flames. I can do that.
All right, so I'm gonna be that guy here. She's 100% fucking dead if she goes down like this. I cannot suspend my disbelief here. This is a super high fucking drop. I'm sorry. This is the steep angle and everything. You just can't convince me this isn't lethal. You can't do it. So after the tower scene, Lara is like, okay, I need a signal fire so they know where to rescue us. That makes great sense. However, what doesn't make sense is that mere seconds away from where she just was is a fire starter and all the fuel that she could possibly need to light a fire to smoke signal the people to come rescue. It's really convenient. It's too convenient. It's like silly how convenient this is. Again, not to be that guy, but she's dead if she's that close to the explosion. Let's move on. In what is perhaps the greatest and most ridiculous example of danger injection in this game, her rescue plane not only gets struck by lightning and crashes, but it crashes directly onto Lara such that she can't move ostensibly left or right to get away from it, so we have to run directly away from it in its path so that it can explode and cause problems for us as we run away and slide and things collapse. And it's just, I don't know, it feels really forced. Like I don't even know why this happened. It doesn't feel earned, right? The amount of times that shit like this happens in the game is frankly absurd. There is no other word for it. It's absurdist, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's just wacky. It's just totally out of line. You know, crazy island princess curse or not, I really just can't buy in. I'm sorry. So Lara finds the pilot and has a rare moment of just complete and total ineptitude and watches a guy get stabbed without even reaching for her gun. She has all these seconds, 1, 2, 3, not acting, so you can still see her. She's not doing anything. She's killed scores of people, been in various gunfights, and she just freezes up for no reason. I don't get it. It's stupid. So just so nobody accuses me of not pointing it out, Lara at the next campfire talks about how incredibly ridiculous that just was and how it's not rational and there isn't really a reasonable explanation for it. So the only thing that's left, I guess implied, is the supernatural. This is the first instance where the game starts really digging into the fact that there is something probably supernatural about this place. She mentioned the snow isn't normal, but maybe it's Nazi weather tech, who knows? But no, that's probably ghosts. Well, it's been a few minutes since we've had some danger injection, so here we go. We're strung up upside down and we have to shoot people in the head with our pistol while we can't move because we're upside down hanging there. See, like, it's not even bad. Like, it's cool, but like, it's dumb that this kind of shit happens constantly. Like, there is a element of it cheapening itself by just happening way too much. Additionally, it's at this moment getting shot at, like literally actively people are shooting at her, that she decides this is the moment that I'm going to fashion some fucking rope to an arrow and shoot it so that I can pull the thing down instead of just shooting them, with a gun. I don't know. I don't get it. I think it's incredibly silly, and this is like a really weird way of introducing the fact that, oh yeah, Lara had this idea, but she's like in no position to be fucking inventing right now. This is really silly. We regroup with Roth and tell him the latest when the co-pilot from the crashed plane starts asking for help on the radio. Lara wants to go help him, and Roth tells her not to bother and that she can't save everyone, and goes on some weird tangent about loss and sacrifice.
I can't just leave him out there alone. I need to get to him.
Sometimes you've got to make sacrifices, Lara. You can't save everyone.
I know about sacrifices.
No, you know about loss. Sacrifice is a choice you make. Loss is a choice made for you.
I can't choose to let him die, Roth.
Again, I'm recording this after the fact. I have the benefit of hindsight, and I can definitely say that at no point in the game did that little conversation have any kind of narrative payoff whatsoever. I don't know why that happened. I think the writers just thought it was cool. Like, it's a cool saying, like, oh no, you don't know about sacrifice, you only know about loss. Loss is a choice made for you, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, I guess, but like, it doesn't apply to the story. I don't know why you said it. Like, it doesn't. At no point is Lara like, oh man, I should have sacrificed instead of not, because now I'm losing things I don't have control over. Like, at no point does it pay off. I don't know why they did that. Is at this point, I am disillusioned with the physics system in this game. It's a lot better than you would think it would be for some kind of AAA game from 2013 that's like mostly linear. Like, it's kind of open world, but it's pretty linear. Like, I don't know. But yeah, meh. Remember when I told you that I played this game back in 2013 but didn't remember anything? That was a lie. This is the second and only other thing that I remembered, because this is a really fucking cool moment. This fucking just building with the wind and the bridge and everything and the cliff, it's awesome. I really like how that looks. The puzzle is just an annoying timing puzzle, but otherwise, yeah, it's cool. We raid another tomb, which there isn't a lot to say there, but what's funny is I got a pistol part from this ancient Japanese tomb. I don't know, man. Yo, hold up. It's been like 3 seconds since we've had some conflict injection. Fucking crank that shit up, bro. Conflict injected. Now do you fucking feel hype? Now is it fun? We're fucking having fun right now. Hell yeah. So we find the co-pilot and we get ambushed in the most ridiculous way possible. And then Matthias shows up, gives a direct order to kill us. His men don't and just knock us out instead. And then we wake up in creepy Goreland. I don't know, man. So once again, despite Matthias saying to kill her, we are just hanging here and loosely at that, because all we need to do is just kind of push against our restraints and they just come apart. I don't know, man. It doesn't. There's no stakes here. We don't care. So we get out and then there's a scary monster noise and then we immediately see the scary monster that made the noise. It's this big brute enemy. There's like 2 of them in the game. Fun fact, this one's like the final boss, basically. We sneak past him. There's some random conflict injection in the form of a sliding bit for no reason, because gotta keep it exciting. We find a trench gun, which is pretty cool. And I'm gonna take this moment to say that I actually really like the setting that they have for this game. You're in basically the Pacific version of the Bermuda Triangle, and you're seeing all these Japanese structures from like antiquity, but also structures from World War II. So you're finding all these World War II weapons, but then you're traveling through all these like more ancient looking, you know, Japanese places. And it's just a really neat aesthetic. Like, I think the setting is actually pretty strong. It's a shame then that the setting seems kind of incidental to the plot. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to be like, oh, well, dude, the Sun Queen's like the main thing about the game. And I'd say kind of, but also kind of not. She's there. She's obviously important in some way, but she's really just the plot device that gives Matthias the excuse to be evil. She's not, like, as an agent, as an actor in the story, she doesn't really feel like she is involved, right? You can maybe explain that her involvement is what causes all the craziness that happened, like all of the literal, comical, unfortunate like serendipity that just keeps happening over and over again to Lara to like try to stop her from figuring out stuff and stop her from saving her friend, who I guess maybe the Sun Queen knows already from the beginning that is the one that is going to give her the new body that she needs. We'll get into that. It's a little weird. The game's plot is just kind of it's all over the place. Like, it doesn't really go in a direction and like keep going in that direction. It's kind of just wiggling all throughout these different plot threads, and none of it feels very satisfying because it's just kind of, it's all there, but none of it is the focus, if that makes any sense. As you can see, we get ambushed in this incredibly easy combat encounter where literally shooting them as they slowly rappel down is instant kill for them. The Oni from earlier shows up again to let us know that the samurai guys are equal opportunity killers. We go through this pretty cool set piece shimmying on the side of a windy cliff. We climb into another building with some enemies and a very simple wind puzzle. And of course, we get some more conflict injection to usher Lara around to wherever the story needs her to be. Seriously, if it feels like I'm belaboring this point too much, imagine what it feels like to play it. At any moment, you are eligible for some random misfortune that just ragdolls you into some other location in an obnoxiously long scripted sequence where the gameplay is just about as good at putting me to sleep as NyQuil is. These parts are just not fun. This is not fun. You're not witnessing fun gameplay. I even cut out a bunch of it because it's just not interesting. Like, I don't know, man. It's just, you just watch Lara fall and slide. It's still going. And oh look, now that we have the shotgun, we have to shoot these wooden barriers out of the way. It's so fucking interactive. It's so fun. Are you having fun? Good, it's over. Fuck. Our friend Sam manages to get a hold of a radio to contact us, and we promise to save her when she is apparently caught by the guards and dragged off screaming. We are shown again that at every possible opportunity, Lara takes it upon herself to save everybody, despite her spotty track record. Put a pin in that. We rappel down, bust through the wooden roof, and almost fall off the cliff because obviously the more times we can wrest control from the player and introduce conflict, the better. We kill some more bad guys and come across the most annoying example in the whole game of these obnoxious sliding scenes where the hitboxes for the spiky bits are really big, and getting demonetized and having to redo the section is more a question of when rather than if. You know, I've not really called attention to this specific aspect up to now, but the brutality and variety of these death scenes is kinda sus. Some more Looney Tunes shit happens. We try not to get disemboweled on trees we can't see, and it becomes incredibly clear that the writers really like seeing Laura get beat up about as much as Tarantino probably likes licking his actresses' feet. If you have a thing for pretty girls getting absolutely ragdolled in fucking dangerous, life-threatening situations, Tomb Raider 2013 has that in spades. After admiring the view while Laura's tummy hurts from the scripted thrashing she just got earlier, we shoot and limp over to a wrecked helicopter where we look for some painkillers, but try as we might, we don't find any. Laura instead finds a lighter and decides to cauterize her wounds while screaming in extreme agony. I've been having a hard time articulating exactly why I find this kind of thing gross, and I think it's just because it feels so forced. Laura is framed as an absolute badass one-woman army who knows everything and is always right. She is not ever portrayed really as a victim, she's the hero. She at no point actually wants to shirk her entirely self-imposed duty to save her crewmates. She categorically refuses to act selfishly. She is so heroic and badass that any effort to bring her down through physical pain just feels shallow and forced. She doesn't suffer mentally. She goes out of her way very often, not because she has to, but because she wants to. The game has some weird motifs of the horror genre, but it doesn't work because you aren't really ever scared for Laura's well-being because she's a super gritty badass who can do no wrong. Any scene trying to strip agency away from Laura or bring her down with physical pain is just entirely dissonant with the rest of the game, and it, I guess, therefore feels vacuous. The only remaining explanation then is that someone in charge was just a super sadist and really liked seeing Mary Sue get hurt. And by the way, that lighter that we found earlier and cauterized our wound with now gives us fire arrows, so we can light everything on fire. Cool, I guess. So we find Sailor Man running from some bad guys, but we need to kill some more before we can actually meet up with him. Way too many boring combat encounters later. Oh no, he's being held hostage and they want Laura to surrender. Well, naturally she immediately agrees, and Sailor Man realizes how dumb that is and decides to go full Chad mode and just kills everyone and himself in the process. Directly afterwards, we get this ridiculous Looney Tunes scene, and I'm just fully checked out at this point. I don't care anymore. It's just so over the top. I can't. It's like just saturated all the fucking drama. Like you just can't. You can't have highs and low. Like it's just all highs and no lows in terms of intensity. It's just crazy. I don't know, man. It doesn't work. So Daddy Roth shows up and starts sniping some guys and promises to do so for the next little section of gameplay, which basically involves him just saying, hey, don't go there, and then shooting the guy, and then being like, hey, don't go there, and then shooting the guy, and then being like, hey, don't go there, and then shooting the guy.
Stop. Don't move. They'll see you. Wait. I can't get it. Go now. Stop. Hold it. Almost got him. Move. Stop. Wait. Lara, I think You're clear.
So more Looney Tunes bullshit happens, scripted running while things collapse sequence, and we find ourselves in a cave where it becomes clear the cult intends to burn Sam alive, Salem style. Lara tries to shoot Matthias with her bow instead of the various fucking guns that she has at her disposal because crucially the writers need her to miss this shot. So missing with her bow and not having time for a follow-up shot, she gets overpowered and then they go to light Sam on fire. Instead of her burning alive, a miraculous gust of wind comes out from behind and puts the fire out. So it becomes clear to them that this must mean that she is the one. So they decide to take Lara away and take her guns and such. And when she is alone with two of her captors, she does some CQC on like a bridge, a stone bridge overlooking a gore pool. And she steals her bow back, but doesn't get anything else, and then just decides that she can't overpower these two guys in close combat, so she just jumps down into the gore pool. Well, turns out someone at Crystal Dynamics saw the descent and decided they wanted to recreate that scene. As I mentioned before, this game likes to borrow aspects from the horror genre, like jump scares, stringed instruments when said jump scares happened, gruesome imagery and gore, literal references to scenes from horror movies, etc. All of this, obviously, despite not being a horror game and having stakes about as low as it can get from like a pseudo Nathan Drake badass that just runs around shooting everyone all the time. Oh yeah, it turns out this island has a lot of natural gas deposits and you just blow a few of them up to progress in this section, so I'm sure that reckless behavior won't matter at all later. This is the only part of the game where I kind of feel like the Ludo narrative is a lot less dissonant. You're stripped of everything except your bow, and you're more encouraged to be scrappy and sneaky because fighting these machine guns head-on with your bow is not a super effective strategy. From a gameplay perspective, this is probably the best part of the game, because the survival themes are actually at home with the gameplay somewhat. I say somewhat because the AI still is dumb as rocks, but, you know, they tried. Hey, remember when I pointed out like how incredibly dangerous it would be to just blow up natural gas deposits all willy-nilly like that? Well, it's at this point the game actually recognizes that fact somewhat. Everything comes at a price though, and ours is enduring another running while things explode section, followed by a sliding section, followed by running through gas section, and then finally we get to play the game again. So a bunch of our friends are trapped in that makeshift cage, and we kill their captors while they cheer us on, and we put all of their lives in extreme danger by literally causing a massive gas explosion that destabilizes the whole cave next to them to gently push their cage to the other side so they can escape. That's crazy. That's actually insane. I don't even know how to like put into words. I don't know how to verbalize how ridiculous that is, but this game already on Looney Tune logic, so whatever. More running while things explode. Fuck. Make it stop. It in fact does not stop for quite a while, and then we eventually reach a point where my game crashed. For some reason, when you boot the game up, you just get this profile screen and you just have to like sit on it and wait, I guess. I tried clicking and stuff, but it didn't seem to do anything, and then eventually it just lets you in. I looked it up, and apparently people are saying that this comes from the game servers being offline, so I guess there's a mandatory wait period whenever you get on the game for the second time onwards, and you just have to wait.
Lara, estás viva.
Fuck, I forgot! After setting my game back to English, I inadvertently skipped a cutscene where you rescue Sam, find your guns, and the sketchy double PhD haver literally snitches on you to Matthias, and you are miraculously saved by falling debris separating him from you. So you fight more and more bad guys. Eventually this turret guy shoots at you, you rappel over to him, try to use the turret on him for some reason instead of just shooting him. Again, Lara just has a problem with that, I guess. And he has you dead to rights, misses, you miraculously find a literal fucking grenade launcher next to you and kill him by shooting him with the Deus Ex Granada. And oh yeah, the grenade comes out sideways. It's at this point the difficulty I selected at the beginning actually becomes relevant because I do die a few times in this section due to failed experimentation with the very bad grenade launcher that doesn't even kill on direct hit, and the sheer quantity of enemies with machine guns who will kill you pretty fast if uninterrupted. With the story seeming to come to a head in the ostensibly, but not really, powerful grenade launcher upgrade, with the difficulty spike and general air of climax and finality, I thought I was almost done with the game. I thought we were approaching the ending. I thought this was like the final act. Many gunfights later, we get this kind of funny scene where Matthias orders them to blow up the bridge we're on, despite friendly soldiers being located on said bridge, and he just domes the guy and tells them to do it anyway. More running while things explode. God, I'm so fucking tired of it. Please, just make it end. Moving on. So we make our way through the collapsing, burning building, and another rescue helicopter pulls up to save Lara. But Lara already knows that nobody can leave the island because of the Sun Queen. She doesn't know exactly how this works yet, but her infallible instincts tell her that they need to land right now or they will die, despite all the danger involved with landing in and of itself. The pilot, and probably Roth as well, aren't entirely sold on the idea of landing, and the pilot refuses, citing the danger and the fact that he barely even got there alive in the first place. Lara then proceeds to pull Roth's gun out and demands the pilot land the helicopter on threat of death at gunpoint. He relents, but turns out it doesn't really matter because the helicopter crashes anyway. Roth wakes up from the wreckage and resuscitates Lara just soon enough to get into a shootout where, upon running out of bullets, decides to take the throwing axe to the back instead of letting it hit Lara. He then pulls out his other pistol and guns down all remaining assailants before apologizing to Lara, telling her that she can do it because, after all,
Lara Croft.
and dies. So Lara cries for a bit, obviously distraught over the loss of her not dad, and then the rest of the gang shows up, and Lara is blamed in a really weird scene for them coming here in the first place, despite it literally being the stated purpose of their whole voyage.
Are you okay, Lara?
Is she okay? Because it's all about Lara, isn't it? Have you forgotten that she's the reason we're here?
That's not fair, Reyes.
You're right. I shouldn't have said that.
It's like kind of weird. Like, she points out that that's kind of ridiculous to even say, and she just immediately backs down like she failed a fucking speech check or something. She's just like, yeah, my bad. Like, I shouldn't have said that. It's like, what? The gang continues to argue about whether or not they can leave, but most of them are in agreement with Lara, and Jonah tells Lara that once again, her instincts are not a weakness, rather a strength. The gang splits up again, and Lara sits down and asks the ghost of Roth for guidance, to which he repeats the line that he said earlier, that she has good instincts and needs to trust them. She hypothesizes about the ritual chamber, ruminates on the secret entrance that's in the river, and the Sun Queen possibly being the source of the storms, and sets off once again. If I don't sound terribly excited, it's because I'm not, and I really wasn't at the point at which I played this, because I really felt like the game should have ended by now. That whole scene with the fire and Matthias and saving Sam and the helicopter, like, it didn't feel like it was 100% ready to be wrapped up, but it felt like they could have pretty easily kind of, you know, started saying, okay, yeah, Sun Queen, let's do that real quick. Okay, let's go out. All right, boom, we're done, right? But no, there's like a whole third of the game left, and it was honestly kind of mind-boggling to me at the time, because I was like, wow, this game's really overstaying its welcome quite a bit. But in fairness, you don't really have to know most of what happens here, so we're not going to be looking at all of it because almost nothing that interesting happens. So you, dear viewer, are going to get to skip most of the annoying and pointless parts. Lara mentions, ironically, how it's been a while since conflict has been injected, and then conflict gets injected, and then I'm already tired of mentioning it, so we're moving on already. I have skipped multiple minutes out of this action sequence. It's going on for so long, and I just came back here, you know, to point out that this sequence being all the same types of stuff, ziplining, sliding, it's really annoying because the game does this slow-mo thing to be like, hey, you should fucking jump here, and then you jump, and then you fucking die, and it's like, oh cool, now I have to do that over again. So at this point, I'll mention the skill tree once again. The tiers that you get. So as you get skills, you advance in these tiers. There's only 3. And so the idea is that as Lara is advancing in the tiers, she's becoming like more hardened, more survivalist, more survivor. And yeah, so it kind of plays into that theme, but she doesn't get like especially brutal really as they go on. So So Lara meets back up with the gang. They're trying to repair this ship and they're trying to move this motor, and they can't do it because they don't have enough mechanical advantage. So they need to go get some pulley thing from a ship that's crashed over there. So Lara volunteers and she does the fetch quest real quick to just go grab it and come back. That's literally all it is. Nothing more interesting happens. Literally, we're gonna cut to her coming back with it. We come back with our quest item, and Jonah, the only character I like, mentions that Alex went off on his own to get some tools and should have been back by now. This fucking Snake Whitman comes back, flailing and acting like he's been chased here, despite clearly just wandering up to snitch again to the fucking cultists. Lara, apparently having self-actualized after losing Roth, actually grows a spine and decides to challenge Whitman on being so suspicious. She asks pointed questions about his loyalty to the group, and Reyes just shuts down the argument right then and there.
I'm going after Alex. Where were the tools?
The engine room. Look, he can take care of himself, Lara.
Good. Then we'll be back soon.
Before she can head out to save the day again, Jonah gives her a shiny new compound bow. While I think this is also a damage upgrade, it mainly just allows us to shoot ropes. Literally, to craggy rocks. The game kind of reminds me of Arkham Asylum, honestly, in a few ways. The game came out in 2009, so it would have been pretty recent when this game was in development, and it kind of shows. The game has a similar structure, and where you're in these semi-open environments, like punctuated by more linear sequences, and it has light Metroidvania elements where you continue to get a progression unlocking upgrades that allow you to access previously locked away spaces, at least in theory, if you can be bothered, which I can't, but you know. The game even has Lara's clothes and physical condition get even more tattered and beaten up as you progress through the game, and I do think that's neat. I'd probably say Arkham Asylum is a much better game overall, although I have not played it since 2009, so who knows. But the stuff that Tomb Raider does really well is mostly lifted from that game. As for the stuff it does not so well, combat is among them. I haven't really been talking about the collectibles, but this one's directly from Alex, and he's talking about how he's totally enamored with Lara and how much of a badass she is, and he thinks if he can also be a badass and go off on his own, that maybe Senpai would notice him. I'll remind you that this is the same guy who was saying creepy things about a literal minor in the beginning of the fucking game, like before the events of the game when we're looking at the videotapes.
Is this little fox, huh?
Oh, she's cute, huh? Yes, Alicia.
Alicia.
It's my daughter.
Oh.
14 years old and smarter than you'll ever be.
Yeah, just so the stakes are clear and all of our ducks are in a row, that's who we're trying to save. After crashing into some metal pipes, which, by the way, is like the loudest thing I can think of a person doing that doesn't involve an explosion, and nobody really caring, we kill some guys that are totally oblivious to our presence, and then a big guy shows up and we kill him too. This enemy, by the way, is functionally identical to the final boss. I don't know why they like put one here and then only have one later as the final boss. Like, it's just bewildering to me, but yeah, we just fought the final boss and we're not really there yet, but that was our dry run, I guess. That was a practice. We get a rope ascender that allows us to obviously ascend rope pretty fast, but also it lets us pull heavy things that are wrapped in rope. The physics of this, don't think about it too hard, because obviously they didn't either. It's neither here nor there. So our definitely not a sexual predator friend Alex is trapped behind some electrical shenanigans, and we gotta do this sliding puzzle with our new rope ascender in order to free him, or more accurately, gain access to the room in which he's trapped. So we do the puzzle. It's not very hard. None of the puzzles in this game are that hard. They're just there to waste your time, kind of just give you something other than shooting guys to do. I kind of wish they were more interesting. I wish the game was like more focused on them, because the shooting doesn't feel very good and the puzzle solving is pretty easy. So the whole experience, it's like the Indiana Jones kind of Nathan Drake package is what I think of when I think of this Tomb Raider game in terms of like kind of what it's supposed to be, like part of what it wants to be. But none of that ends up feeling very good. So it's just a lot of things that feel passable. So this one's got me kind of fucked up. This is fucking weird. So he is trapped in this room. He's in a gunfight and he has the tools. So he's like, hey, Laura, take the tools, go, you know, leave me, you know, whatever. And Laura's like, no, I'm not doing that. And then he's like, no, I'm not fucking asking, I'm telling. And so she's like, okay. And then she fucking kisses him and then fucking goes. And then the dude fucking heroically sacrifices himself by shooting a gas thing. And then he dies. I don't know, man. It's just kind of weird. The dude's a fucking... He's kind of a loser, weird pedo scumbag, and then Laura is like, oh yeah, I'll kiss him before he dies, and then like, I don't know, it's just weird. The game's weird. Like, there's a really weird fucking moment. More shit blows up, you escape while things explode, yada yada, status quo for this fucking game. Everything's just blowing up all the time. She feels kind of bad because she couldn't save somebody. Once again, this is kind of a running theme.
Laura!
When we heard the explosion, you thought...
Alex. He was still on the ship.
Seems anyone caught with you has a pretty low survival rate.
Reyes,
Better keep your distance then.
let's just eat, okay?
I gotta say, again, it's way more enjoyable, these conversations that Laura has when she actually has the spine now and she's just fucking snarking back at people. It's great. So Reyes still isn't on board with the whole waiting to get off the island thing. She's like, I'm fixing this boat and we're taking it with or without you whenever the fuck it's ready. And so Laura's like, all right, fuck. And then so she's like, okay, I have to go and figure out this Sun Queen bullshit and get back before Reyes fixes the boat. So we head off to his research lab to figure out what the fuck's going on. We do some murdering, we do some puzzling, and eventually we figure out what the fuck's going on because we find this dead samurai dude and we look in the fucking hilt of his sword for some reason is this note, and the note explains basically that the Sun Queen is this immortal spirit that is basically body hopping over and over again to all these different bodies because their mortal bodies that she inhabits still age and still decay, but she can continue to be immortal. But she was promised immortality, I guess, so she's kind of miffed about the whole situation. So she is angry and the storms are the anger. And so therefore she needs to die, like actually die, in order for the storms to stop. This is all revealed to Laura via this note. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to deny the supernatural aspect of this plot thread, right? Of this, why are there storms? There are storms because the fucking Sun Queen is an immortal, spiteful bitch. So the whole thing is like, okay, like maybe there's a rational explanation, and then the Matthias has said in a few occasions that, you know, oh, you're looking for rationality where there is none. And it's like, well, he's crazy, so like he can't be right, but he kind of is right in that sense where like, no, it's not really a rational explanation. It's rational in the sense that you can follow the logic, but it's not super rational in the world that we live in that such a thing has happened, right? So Laura's instincts are fucking on overdrive, I guess. She's fully into believing her intuition about shit, and her intuition is that actually fucking spirits and shit are real, and actually the storm is really just the fucking, that is the explanation. The storm is there because the Sun Queen is pissed. So she's like, okay, now I know what I need to do. What I don't understand is that earlier, if you recall, we saw in the casket the Sun Queen's body, or at least a body. So I guess that wasn't the Sun Queen. It was like a fake out. It was like an old body because like they said, the Sun Queen body swaps. So I guess that was not the last body, but the body before last. But like, how long has she been doing this? And like, how long do the bodies last? And like, how long have there been people on this island to do this? Because Matthias seems to be under the impression that once he does this, that she'll be chill and she'll let everybody off the island, which doesn't seem like it's probably true because the note from the samurai made it sound like that she's just mad about about existing in this way at all, because, you know, she's trapped in this halfway stage. I don't know. And by the way, the game never actually explains this, to my knowledge, at least during the actual, maybe there's like some fucking collectibles that shine more light on it or something, but I don't know, man. So anyway, after that mini revelation, we get some distress calls on the radio from our friends. Turns out they're fighting the cultists and they took Sam and Whitman's gone. So the snake struck again. So it's like, okay, let's fix this boat. We're gonna take the river to the secret river entrance of the ritual chamber, and we're gonna save Sam and defeat the Sun Queen and the cultists and do the thing. We're gonna save the day. So it's like, all right, sure.
My little bird, this isn't goodbye. I'm not gonna say goodbye.
We got your back, Laura.
So off we go, and who do we run into but the snake and the fucking cult leader in a pretty objectively funny scene.
Of course. I've encountered these archaic tribes before. Let's get some awards, James.
What is he doing?
My name is Dr. James Whitman. I come to you in peace. I bring you your new queen.
Oh no.
Your queen. What is it in Japanese? Your Joe.
So Matthias escapes with Sam deeper into the temple or whatever, and the bridge gets fucked up by wind, because of course it does. We gotta have Laura go the long way around. So she sneaks through this temple, and honestly, I kinda like this part of the game. It's fully ridiculous and a little silly, and it's just kind of like, I don't know, not, like, it's weird. I feel like the game hedged the, like, is it supernatural, is it not supernatural for like too long, and so eventually we hit this part where we're all in on supernatural, right? These are literal fucking samurai just walking around. We have mummy samurai guys running at you with samurai swords. Like we're full in it now, right? We've gone full ridiculous, so that's cool. I don't have a problem with that, really. It just took so long to get here that I feel like the game is worse for it. Like, if the game had been more hamming it up with these cool samurai and all that for longer, I feel like the game would have more personality. It would feel like a more, like the game had a decision that it made, but it feels like it was like trying to play the like, oh, will we, won't we thing on like, is this supernatural? Like, this snow's kind of weird. All the Sun Queen's kind of weird, but like always kind of giving itself an out in terms of a plausible explanation for like, there's probably an explanation for why all this shit's happening. Maybe the storm is like, again, World War II, famous era for like just crazy science experiments. Like you can have a crazy weather manipulating device on this island from World War II causing storms. Like that isn't so out there, but what is out there is like fucking mummy samurai zombies that are protecting this immortal fucking Sun Queen body swapper. Like it's dumb, and I don't even have a problem with it being dumb like that. I just have a problem with the game not committing earlier to this idea, because I feel like I played so much game where I could have been fighting cool zombie samurai and I only fight him for like the last 20 minutes of the game, and it just feels kind of weird. Like, I wish I was doing this more, because this is honestly the coolest combat sections in the game, and I think a lot of that is the fact that they don't use guns. So you just have all these guys rushing you who don't use guns, and the ranged enemies are using bows, which are more obviously fun to deal with because they do put pressure on you from range, but they're dodgeable and you can like see the attack coming, and they don't just hose you down with bullets like the machine gun guys do. So they're a lot more fun to fight. They're really fun. They're really cool. And the setting is neat. You got the wind, you got the ancient structures and all that. So this whole part of the game is honestly the best part, which is kind of good because it's towards the end, but it's kind of bad because it's way outclassing anything else that came previously, to the point where it doesn't even necessarily make the rest of the game look bad, but it puts into focus how much better it could have been. Also, I do want to mention, it's not a serious like downside or anything. I just think it's kind of funny. The samurai soldiers that you fight here, despite not carrying guns, not using guns, not fucking having anything to do with even the time period in which fucking these guns were available, are carrying ammo for all of your guns when you fucking loot their body. It's pretty funny. So you get to this part and you're like, all right, the game foreshadowed it. They showed me the Oni. I'm gonna fight this fucking thing. I'd been fighting samurai guys all day. So you're like, all right, I'm gonna fight this guy. And so you go and he like kind of swings at you, and then wind happens, and then some debris just happens to hit him and he falls off the bridge, and you like, you know, manage to stay. So that is insane dumb luck, and that kind of illustrates what I think the like writing of the game, like the scenario, how the scenarios were stitched together. This doesn't track. Like, you can't even use the excuse of like, oh well, the Sun Queen is like trying to prevent her from doing and all this, and this is why all the crazy shit happened, like the plane crashing on top of her, and every single thing that she fucking uses having like a 75% chance of just catastrophically failing and leading to like a running while explosions happen and or sliding sequence. So like, no, the game is just, it's just built on conveniences. Like, it's just conveniences just happen to whoever needs the convenience to happen, and it's kind of not really like picking favorites as far as like who gets to have the convenience, because it's just whoever the plot needs to have the advantage at the time. So we do this, it's charitable even calling it a puzzle. We do this puzzle adjacent task, and then we get into this chamber, and Laura reads the information that's around the room, and she comes to the realization for like the third time of what's going on here. Like, it was pretty clear the first time that it was directly because of the Sun Queen. The second time she has this fucking revelation, it's crystal clear because the fucking ancient dude's sword note said it. Like, it just laid it out in no uncertain terms what was going on. She's body swapping, she's immortal, she's pissed, the storms, like all of it was included in that. And so only now does Laura's fucking unparalleled archaeological instincts and intellect fucking give her the insight that, yes, actually it's the Sun Queen whose body swap. Like, this is not, I don't know, she's slow on the uptake here, whatever, right? The game lets you know that this camp here is the path, is like the point of no return, and you do the final section if you go beyond this point. So you go beyond this point, and it's very dramatic, snow everywhere, and Matthias fucking has an encounter with you, and he actually mentions how much of a not hero Laura is. I mean, Laura saves people, but he brings up that she's killed shitloads of people, and like, are you really justified in what you've done? And that's the one and only time that anyone in the whole game brings up the fact that Laura has killed scores and scores and scores of people, and that maybe that is not an unequivocal moral good. And yeah, so the plot convenience puts a bunch of fire in between the two of them. It's just not, we're not even gonna talk about it anymore. It's just dumb. I don't know, man. And so we begin our ascent. We got to go the long way, so we're climbing up some craggy surfaces. We're using all the tricks that we have at our disposal, and lightning is striking, and dramatic, important things are happening, and eventually we get to the top. So we witness Matthias doing the whole like, rise, rise, the Sun Queen, and take your body that you want, to whatever. And Laura tries to interrupt this ritual by shooting an arrow in the windiest fucking area anyone has ever shot an arrow, and is surprised when it doesn't work. So whatever, I guess we're gonna have to get closer. We shoot a bunch of bad guys. That's not really different or interesting. Lots of wind, that's the main thing to think about here. Shooting people, wind, and then eventually we come across the Oni again. To call this fight kind of disappointing is kind of understating it a little bit. This guy is obviously pretty menacing looking, and the game foreshadows him like a shitload. His introduction is people just like unloading into him and just not giving a shit. And the way you fight him is just the same as how you fought that fucking other guy on the ship from earlier. Remember when I was like, oh, this is literally the final boss? That's it. It's the same fight. It's just this. He just swings, and then you do your fucking insane super far dodge that has like all the fucking recovery. Like he just, there's no way you lose. Like, I don't know how you lose this fight. Like, this is the easiest shit ever. You just fucking roll behind him and shoot him in the back 3 times. And then it's like, oh, well, once you do the thing once, he's gonna spawn 2 enemies that you can just kill. And it's like, yeah, but like, why do I care? Like, this fight is trivial. Like, the fucking encounter of all the samurai fighting you, like that I showed you earlier, like shooting the fucking bows and you're just running at you, that fight is legitimately harder than this one was. Like, if that was somehow the final fight and they just kind of didn't, like, they explained away the Oni, or the Oni died in a cutscene or something, that would have been better. In fact, I think they should have done that. This Oni should have been a cutscene, which is sad because Matthias coming up is a cutscene, basically. Glorified cutscene. These fucking, you know, QuickTime events notwithstanding, these don't count. We're not counting this gameplay. I really hope the next 2 games in this series don't have these, because I still haven't played them. I'm actually recording this after beating this game. So Matthias, yeah, so fucking you fight Matthias and you try to shoot at him and you just miss, and so you're like, oh, I'm gonna axe him, and then you're like, oh no, there's the gun because that's the gun that you gave Sam, that pistol that he has. He took it because that's Roth's other gun, because you took one of them for yourself and then you gave the other one to Sam earlier. And then so he stole them, and then, oh look, now you got both. You're dual wielding just like Lara Croft. Isn't that cool? Okay, now you're done dual wielding, that's it. So that's literally, that's it. That's the final boss, that's the video game. You fucking go up to the Sun Queen and you just fucking make her eat shit with the fucking fire torch. It's just, you know, what, I feel some kind of way about this ending, right? On one hand, it's fine. On one hand, it's like, yeah, sure, how else were you gonna end this ridiculous plot? But on the other hand, it's like, the fucking Oni was a joke. Matthias was a fucking QuickTime event cutscene in which they do the fan service of like, oh, look, she's dual wielding. Isn't that cool? Roth dual wielded earlier. He dual wielded those wolves. And so it's like, all right. And then the sky opens up and everything. It's like, I don't know, man. It's fucking, I'm not impressed by this aspect of the game. Like, I think the best parts of this game, now that we've seen basically all of it, I think I get to have this rest of this time to like really talk about it. So the day is saved. We carry Sam. We're making it out of this. It's fine. The game's combat is frequently what you're doing. I would say like 30 to 40% of the time is combat, right? And then another 30 to 40% of the time is the sliding, running, explosion. Like, it sounds ridiculous and maybe I'm overestimating it, but that's what it feels like. Like when you're playing the game and just randomly the game's like, oh, we should make this interesting. Let's inject some conflict and fucking do the thing and have Laura run for a while on a scripted path. It's just weird, right? So Laura gives this monologue talking about how, you know, she wishes that she like believes, she wishes that she like had more faith in her father and all that, all the crazy stuff that's out there in the world. She wants to go find it. She wants to go explore and find all the things that are weird about the world, right? This guy talks to her and he's like, oh, fucking, you look pretty fucked up, right? Yeah, you must have seen some shit. I probably don't even want to hear about it. And she's just like, whatever. And so she's like, okay, I'm not going home, right? I'm gonna be a fucking vagabond traveling the world and discovering all the bullshit that's out there because like she doesn't really have a family. Like what else is she gonna do? She lost Roth, right? And so the fucking title thing that they put here, A Survivor is Born. Like, I have a problem with this, right? She was already a survivor. She's been a survivor the whole time. There's not been, like, from moment one, she gets kidnapped and she fucking gets herself out by lighting herself on fire. Like, she was always a survivor. That was never the question. The question is her, like, her self-actualization moment, her development as a character is when she starts trusting herself and when she starts like snarking off after she loses Roth. She's like, oh, like fucking, you know, everybody that's around you fucking dies. And she's like, well, stay away then. Like fucking, like that's Laura's growth, right? Her growth isn't becoming a survivor. Her growth is that she is the one person that didn't believe that she was the shit. And now she is counted among the people who now realize that Laura is the shit and she's a fucking girl boss and she's just a super badass and does everything, right? All of Laura's character development is in that area. In the other area, like, as I've mentioned, the survivor, like, it's almost like the narrative that they hypothetically want to give is that she's like this innocent kind of, you know, yeah, maybe smart, but very naive, very nice, not very hardened, right? She's not a grizzled fucking veteran of, you know, the island and survival. Like, she doesn't have those skills, right? So the beginning of the game happens and it forces this, you know, fish out of the water. She's normally, you know, has her head in books or whatever, and she's never, but like, she's already a badass. She fucking kills that one guy. She's killing wolves, you know, she kills wolves before that. And then, which are arguably like more impressive because wolves are scary. And we find out earlier that the wolves were bred to be more aggressive. So yeah, there's that too. But anyway, she kills the rapist dude and she's like, oh God. And then she fucking kills 2 more guys. And then she's like, she's over it. She's already a killer. She's a hardened killer. As soon as she kills her rapist dude, the rest of the guys come easy, right? None of the other deaths ever affect her, right? Like in terms of like her killing other people, that doesn't bother her at all. And the morality of it is basically never mentioned up until Matthias at the very end is like, oh, you know, you ought not think yourself so heroic. You fucking killed a lot of people. And then she's just like, whatever, like I had to. And it's like, yeah, she kind of did have to, like, but like, you didn't even float that, really. You didn't even ask the question until the very end. And then you're just kind of like, yeah, well, of course not. It's like, well, what the fuck? The theme, the game, so here's the thing. The idea is that supposedly the game is kind of like this horror game. It has aspirations of like having horror elements where it has like the horror movie stings, like with the string instruments and stuff and the jump scares, because it has jump scares. It's fucking weird. Like it's a really weird game, but the game has jump scares and it has these scenes that are like more obviously supposed to evoke like this kind of horror as opposed to anything else. You have that Descent fucking copycat scene. So the game is obviously aspirationally somewhat horror, but it's not. And the story isn't a horror story. The story is about, it's about a ghost, it's about a spirit, but it's not a ghost story. It's not like anything like that. It's more like an adventure. It's like fucking Pirates of the Caribbean or some shit. Like it's like not quite swashbuckling, because you're not like all over the place having fun and cracking jokes, but like short of that, it's all there. Like if there were no humor, the game is basically humorless. It's like if you took Uncharted and just extracted all of the humor out of it, and then where there was humor, you put horror instead. So it's like superficially horror, still not literally horror, but it just alludes to being a horror game. That's what Tomb Raider feels like. That's what this game is. This game is like a weird action game that says it's about like survival and the process of this girl who is demonstrably not a survivor in the beginning to one that very much is, right? It's her becoming the Tomb Raider, right? Like, even though they do that for all three of these games for some reason, this is like the moment where like internally she becomes the person that she needs to be in order to be the Tomb Raider, right? She like self-actualizes in a certain way, right? But only in her own like view of herself. In her personality outwardly towards other people, it's the same. She's always been heroic, always been capable, always been a survivor from moment fucking go. It's just, I don't get it. I don't get this game. It's like they tried, and even the credits say this. The credits are like, we made the best game that we possibly could. And it's like, that reads very literally. Like, to me, that means like they made the best game that circumstances permitted, which is always true, but in this case, it almost feels more true. I think they had aspirations of being more coherent with their narrative and their themes and everything. And you can kind of see glimpses of like what they meant to do, what they were trying to do. But the game itself, especially the Ludo narrative, like, we're not even, the fact that Lara is just genociding people and that's the main gameplay, and then the game is about her kind of being victimized in a way, like her like constant struggle through this environment to come out the other side like a stronger person. It's weird. It's just weird. None of it seems to mesh. None of it seems to work. So I don't know. Tomb Raider 2013, in summary, I've said about everything that I feel like I need to say about it. Tomb Raider 2013 is not a bad video game, but is it a 90-something%? Like, if I could have just make the percentage whatever I in my head thought it would be, like, if before seeing the Steam reviews, I would have thought this game be at like a 83, like something like that, like a low 80s. Definitely not in the 90s, because like the game has ideas that are cool, but they're not really solidly done. It has combat that's serviceable. It has puzzles that are serviceable. It has good environments. I think the setting and the environments are pretty good. They're quite cool. I wouldn't say they're like top tier. Like, we're not including this game in like the most gorgeous vistas in video games. Like, we're not having that conversation. But they're good. They're very good. They outclass every other aspect of the game. So they definitely shine. They definitely warrant mentioning. And the story and the characters are just like, they're just there. Like, I really don't think anyone's talking about Sam or Matthias or even Jonah. Jonah is the best one, but it's just because he's nice and chill, right? Like, he's just the cool guy that's just like, he's fat and he's nice and he just likes to eat and chill and be nice and that everyone be friends, but he also has a shotgun. So it's like, okay, yeah, dude's cool. And I think he shows up in the next game. So they probably figured that out. But yeah, so overall, the game's not bad, but it's not like, this game is like the most bland, like middle of the road that you could get as far as AAA games go, while still being obviously creatively inspired somewhat. Like the horror, the strange, horror inclusion and the just the overall themes. It's like this game could work. Like if Crystal Dynamics tried again to make this same exact game and had, more budget and more time or whatever, and like similar people, I think they could do it. I think they could make exactly what they actually wanted to make, but just like it didn't. It looks like a much better game that didn't quite come together, but it did make it out the door, and it is okay, and it is serviceable, but it's clear it's not what it's supposed to be. That's how I feel about Tomb Raider 2013. Thanks for watching.